We've all heard the phrase, don't get into nursing for the money. So how much is the money? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so thankful to have you guys here again. We're gonna have a conversation regarding nursing and different types of jobs and different types of pay today. You'll notice I don't have a lot of editing in my videos anymore because I actually hate editing. So if you will subscribe to my channel, maybe someday we can afford an editor, but at this time, it's just gonna be a chat because that's all I have the energy for. So let's get into this conversation. I appreciate you guys so much for being here, and let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoy this video. I completely agree with the sentiment. Don't get into nursing for the money, but of course that's definitely a perk of being in the healthcare industry and working as a nurse. So I just want to kind of go through the jobs that I've had in nursing in my nursing career and before, just to kind of go into the financials of it so you have a better picture from somebody who's actually done it. I want to start with my first job that I had while I was in college. I was a receptionist at a medical office at a dialysis clinic, and for no experience, straight out of high school, going into college. As a receptionist, I got paid $10 an hour, and they were very generous with me. They let me, work when I could, which was mostly like Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays because I was doing clinical rotations and I was doing exams. So I wasn't working very often, but it did help. It helped me, pay my rent that I had to pay, and it helped me get my foot in the door as far as being in a medical facility. And I stayed in that facility for the next 3 years. As I graduated nursing school, I worked there for during nursing school, during my LPN, and then I worked there as a registered nurse as well. So after graduating and passing my NCLEX for my LPN, a licensed practical nurse, or a licensed vocational nurse, they're the same thing. It just depends where you live. So I'm from New Mexico, so an LPN is what I'll refer to it as. I made $17 an hour, and that was working at a dialysis clinic. So that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for like a treatment center. You can kind of picture that. The patients have their treatments 3 times a week or more often if necessary. So I was working at minimum 40 hours a week because I would open the clinic at 4 a.m. and then I wouldn't leave until the last patient left. So I would leave around, like 5 or 6 at night, and I was still in school at this time as well. So give or take how much I was really making, but $17 an hour if I, was clocked in. And then in 2021, when I finally graduated with my RN, my associate's degree in nursing, I got to take my NCLEX, and as an RN, I was making $28 an hour. So you see, from 21 to $28 an hour with 1 more year of school, meant a lot to me. And then I signed on to do a travel contract for a very short amount of time. I went between New Mexico and Texas, about an hour and a half away, and I would sometimes work, where I'm living now in Texas, and then I would go back home to New Mexico every other day because it was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and sometimes Saturdays and holidays as well. So with my travel contract, I was making $32 an hour, and then they would pay for gas, and they would pay for my hotels wherever I was staying. Was really nice too for them to pay that for me. And what a good experience, especially being a new RN. It was hard. It was super hard to be living somewhere and working somewhere else, but definitely comes with the pay increase if you're going to be doing travel. And then you guys know from YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, that travel nurses make a lot more money because they sign on for these short contracts or sometimes longer, and they can be extended. But these people are making way more than like an in-clinic or in-hospital nurse is making. And I don't have a lot of experience with that, but I have seen some recent contracts just online where they're making like $2,000 like a week or, less. It depends. It just depends where you are and where you're going to be working at, and just it's going to be per contract, but not something that I have a whole lot of experience with. I did travel nursing for a very short time because I ended up moving to Texas and then changing my job. So I went from dialysis into an OBGYN clinic where I was at for about 3.5 years, and my starting pay at that job was $32 an hour. And the highest I ever got at that job for 3.5 years was $32.50. I tried to argue that as much as I could, but that was the highest raise I could ever get to. And they kind of capped it at that. And so, yeah, $32.50 was my last raise that I got at that job, which caused a little bit of tension just because I felt like they hired me with very limited like women's health experience at $32 an hour. And you learn and you grow and you get more and more experience, and then also just more job responsibilities. I felt like I should have been compensated for that, but they did agree to the 50 cents. So I did get paid that for a couple of months before I ended up finding another job. that job also paid for my health insurance, which was amazing as well. And then my last job that I actually just finished with the schools here, I was getting paid a salary position, which was something very different. So I was getting paid once a month, which was difficult and just kind of complicated because you get paid at a different time every month. It was always like towards the end of the month, but different. And then I didn't start with the schools at the beginning of the school year. So I got like a fourth of like what the contract would be. So my pay was cut a lot. I think when I do the math, let me actually do the math and I will come back. Sorry, I had to do some math. So with my contract not being the full contract, I mean like from the start of school to the summertime, so about August to May, I started November to May. So I got a lot less of that contract time. So it would have been about $32, $30 an hour if you were to do the math of what the salary ended up being. But because it was not the full contract, I got paid about $20 an hour. So that was pretty difficult. So that's about $3,000 a month after tax and everything. I could be wrong in some of that math. I'm not the best at math. So I think it's about $20 an hour, and that is a RN position full-time in the school system. And people know school nurses do get paid a lot less. Again, they do have options for them to pay your health insurance, summers off. Like right now I'm still getting paid from the schools, even though it's August and school's about to start again. This is still like my contract time. So I'll get my last check from the schools at the end of this month. Then I've also been interviewing for nurse jobs right now, and it does look like for what I'm looking for is like a clinic position, is they're ranging about like $30-ish an hour to maybe about like 42. So it just kind of depends what you're looking for and what you're going to be in. Hospital nurses, of course, get paid a little bit more, and then they have more options for things like overtime, shift differential, which is going to be like if you're working at night or if you're working on the weekends, they usually will add on like $2 more for you because those are the shifts that people usually don't want to work. Unless you're like a night owl, then you're making shift differential, especially if you're like getting called in. All of those things will change your pay. So I hope this helped paint a little bit of a better picture and reality. I do want to let you know I don't live in a major city. I do live in like a college town, but it's not Dallas, it's not Houston, Austin, none of those cities. Right on like the cusp of New Mexico. So it's very similar here as to what nurses can get paid. Of course, if you're going to be in a bigger city or a bigger state as far as like California, those types of places, you're going to get paid more because it costs more to live there. So definitely do your research. If you're going to be a travel nurse, make sure you look into getting a compact license. It's super easy. It's something you have to apply for on your board of nursing, whatever state you're in, and then make sure you pay the fees. And sometimes you might have to get fingerprinted again, or, you know, turn in the right type of documentation, and you can make sure you have a compact license, unless if you're moving to a state that isn't a compact state. So make sure you do your research. And if you have any questions for me down in the comments, please let me know. And if you would not mind giving this video a like, and if you would subscribe to my channel, that would be so appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.